Hello everyone, today we will talk about the Blacklist Season 9, Episode 8, The Good Old Days, full episode, recap, and breaking down. Cooper, Harry Lennox, has not only been framed for murder, but the framer is now entrapping him in the cover-up he made for said murder, making constant deep-throat calls to remind Cooper that he's responsible for one make that 2 deaths. Reddington, James, Spader, is about to lose his relationship with Miss Karina Arroyev, the one happy thing in his life, because he can't let Liz's death go. As Park, Laura Son, reminds wrestler Diego Clattenhoff, when she's having to stop him from stealing prescription pads while she's actively giving CPR to an attempted murder victim. Her marriage is hanging by a threat. She got zapped by a next-gen weapon that can kill people through walls, and as a result of the latter in combination with giving wrestler her urine for a drug test, she recently found out that she had a miscarriage. And as for wrestler, his hopeful tone at the end of the last episode is a little harder to maintain in the present. He is quite literally handcuffing himself to his desk to try and stay off drugs because, well, addiction is no joke, nor can it be tied up in an hour-long bottle episode, even if that would make everything a lot easier. So, it's difficult to walk out of this episode feeling very hopeful for the future of our beloved task force. The episode opens with a pro tennis player exiting a building to a bunch of reporters asking variations on 2 questions. 1. How is he continuing to play so well at his age? And 2. One lone reporter asking what his affiliation with German pharmacologist Dr. Razmak Meyer, Henry Strom, is. The tennis player, Sam, bristles at the latter question because, as it turns out, Dr. Meyer has been giving him performance-enhancing injections that Sam seems to be begrudgingly accepting. The last we see of Sam, he's lying dead with a needle in his arm after Dr. Meyer over-injects him, and induces a heart attack. Reddington passes along the case to Cooper, knowing that Dr. Meyer is somehow involved with Sam's death, but when wrestler and Park interview Sam's parents, they've never heard of Meyer. Their family friend, Walker Burgos, however ding, recognizable character actor in the form of Josh Cook does recognize Meyer's name because Burgos just so happens to be their owner of a popular athletic wear brand that was one of Sam's sponsors. Burgos says he's heard of Meyer, but anyone in the sports industry knows to stay away from him, and at that point, Sam's parents also recognize the name because there was a reporter who'd been hounding Sam about his affiliation with some doctor. Unfortunately, said reporter is currently being drugged on the street by Dr. Meyer for knowing too much. Meyer drags Stella Wong back to her apartment where she gives him all of her notes on the story in exchange for the antidote to the drug that's slowly killing her, which Meyer ultimately destroys before leaving Stella dead in her apartment. When Park and wrestler find Stella's body, they call Burgos into the post office to see if he has any more helpful information since he was so informative before. He tells them that even though Sam denied it, he does believe Sam was doping, and he may have been using Meyer to do it. The task force asks for a list of Burgos' other sponsored athletes in case they be future targets, which he graciously provides. And later, when it turns out that in her final living moments, Stella Wong swallowed a flash drive with all of her research on it, Burgos graciously offers to contact the woman seen in photos with Dr. Meyer, another one of Burgos' sponsored athletes, Annie Boleyn. Ultimately, Burgos does one better than just call Annie to warn her. He shows up at Annie's door, promises to protect her from Meyer, who she's also been begrudgingly accepting injections of, and then drugs her himself. As it turns out, Burgos was employing Meyer to drug his sponsored athletes so that they could enhance their performances, and he could sell more shoes. When he found out the FBI was investigating Meyer, he got Meyer to kill Stella Wong, then immediately turned around and killed Meyer so that everyone who knew what he was up to would be dead. Annie is the last living proof of Stella's research, he thinks, so Burgos steals Meyer's drug-in kit, and is in the process of drugging Annie when Park and Aram show up. And I kid you not, this man slips out the back door, then runs around to the front door, acting as if he's just arrived to warn Annie about Meyer at the instruction of the FBI. The guy is good. I mean, I was still appalled that Amir Arison, ultimately followed Burgos urging to leave Annie unattended and chase after Maya, who Aram and Park think is the one who escaped out the front door, but the guy is good. Luckily, the post office has finished sorting through all the files that weren't destroyed by Stella Wong's stomach acid, and have figured out that Burgos was the one employing Maya all along, both to drug his athletes, and later, to kill the ones he thought could expose him. And Park busts back into the house right as Burgos is about to kill Annie. So Maya the Blacklister is dead, Burgos the criminal is caught, and Annie's life is saved. But, you may be wondering, where on earth is Raymond Reddington? After getting the task force started on this week's Blacklister, Reddington gets caught up in some personal affairs. You see, since Elizabeth died, Red has been in possession of the cell phone of her murderer, Neville Townsend's right-hand man. And ever since he found out that Demp gave Elizabeth his letter before she died, he's been questioning everything about what happened that night, a night that he thought he'd put her close to once he moved away and met Mears and Weecher. But now, Reddington's thoughts have returned to obsessing over Liz, and he's asked his hacker buddy, Tadashi, to investigate the contents of the murderer's phone, which concerns Mears. She thinks that if Reddington goes back down that road, he's going to fall back into old, obsessive habits, and she can already see him changing from the man she first met. While I feel for Mears, we're on very different pages about this. Reddington reopening the investigation into Liz's death means reopening the door to the Reddington, Elizabeth mythology. I don't love that the contents of the murderer's phone ultimately lead Red to shame Demp when he sees that Elizabeth's killer was watching Demp and Elizabeth at the moment Demp handed over the letter to her. But, if this is what finally allows us to find out the implications of Reddington's letter, to find out what Elizabeth was to Reddington, and why it was worth risking so much, well, all is fair in love and network television, I guess. Posthumous Pulitzer for Stella Wong, who swallowed a flash drive on her deathbed to save the story. Park is absolutely savage to Rissler in this episode, who is disappointing her left and right. But she eventually comes back around to help him beat his addiction. Which is good, because he eventually handcuffs himself to his desk, and she's the one on call to get him out in the morning. Cooper gets definitive proof that he was drugged by a bartender on the night of Doug's murder, only to find the bartender dead in his apartment, and get yet another taunting call, on a landline, from whoever is framing him. Aram is all of us signing up for a triathlon, settling for getting really into running, and then just buying pair of